That night, I lost everything. But from the shadows, I took it all back!
Have you ever met two people and instantly thought, wow, you were made for each other? And then, a moment later, you realize it's only because they're both equally, spectacularly awful human beings? That's the story we have today. A perfect storm of delusion, betrayal, and destructive compatibility that ends in a train wreck so massive, so meticulously planned, you simply won't be able to look away. Hey, and welcome back to the channel. I am so glad you could join us for another story that is truly, and I mean truly, out of this world. This one is a masterclass in quiet, calculated revenge. If you're ready for a tale of how a 25-year marriage went down in flames, make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is on, because you won't want to miss a single devastating detail. Now let's dive in. My name is Arthur, and at 54 years old, I thought I had it all figured out. For the last 25 years, I'd been married to Delilah. We had built a life together, a real one, brick by brick. We'd raised 3 incredible kids who were now all grown up, successfully launched into their own lives. When our youngest son, Ben, moved out for college last year, the house became quiet. For the first time in over 2 decades, it was just Delilah and me again. The financial burden that came with raising a family had eased, and a new kind of freedom was settling in. I genuinely believed we were about to start the best chapter of our lives. I'd daydream about it sometimes. We'd travel more, maybe finally take that trip to Italy we'd always talked about. We could be spontaneous again, like we were before mortgages and parent-teacher conferences. The pre-kid era, filled with laughter, late-night talks, and a bond one thought was unbreakable. And for a while, it felt like we were getting there. Our social life was thriving. We hosted dinner parties, went out with friends, and enjoyed the simplicity of just being a couple again. I was happy. I was content. I felt a deep, peaceful certainty that the woman I had loved for half my life was right there beside me, ready to walk into the sunset together. I had absolutely no idea that my sunset was about to be obliterated by a violent, unforeseen storm. That storm arrived last week at a friend's 50th birthday party. The party was at his new vacation home, a beautiful place by a lake. The atmosphere was perfect, music playing, about 25 of our closest friends laughing, sharing stories. I'd had a couple of whiskeys and was feeling warm and relaxed, catching up with some old buddies I hadn't seen in a while. It was in that comfortable haze that I first noticed Delilah was gone. I didn't think much of it at first. The house was getting a bit crowded and stuffy. I figured she'd probably stepped out for some fresh air or was waiting for the restroom to be free. I casually glanced around, but she wasn't in the main room. I went back to my conversation, the thought disappearing as quickly as it came. But then 10 minutes stretched into 15, then 20. A small, nagging feeling started to prick at the back of my mind. It wasn't like her to just vanish at a party without a word. I pulled out my phone and called her. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. That's when the pleasant buzz from the whiskey began to morph into a cold knot of anxiety. I excused myself and started asking around. Hey, have you seen Delilah? Most people hadn't. Then, one of my friend's wives, Sarah, told me she'd seen her on the phone out on the front porch a little while ago. The information didn't soothe me. It made the knot in my stomach tighten. If her call was over, why hadn't she come back inside? Why wasn't she answering my call now? Panic, sudden and sharp, began to take hold. My mind, usually rational, started jumping to terrible conclusions. What if she'd felt dizzy and fainted? What if something had happened to her? I was a little unsteady on my feet from the drinks, but I walked as quickly as I could towards the front of the house, my heart starting to pound against my ribs. She wasn't on the front porch. She wasn't in the driveway. A frantic energy propelled me forward, around the side of the house towards the large, dimly lit backyard that sloped down towards the lake. And that's where I found her. Tucked away in a dark corner, partially obscured by a large oak tree, she was with a man. Even from a distance, through my slightly blurred vision, I knew something was wrong. This wasn't a casual chat. He was leaning into her space, his body language aggressive. He was holding her hand, but not in a gentle way. His grip was tight, insistent, like he was refusing to let her go. It looked like they were in the middle of a tense argument. My world narrowed to that single scene. All I saw was my wife, cornered by a stranger. The protective instinct that had been dormant for years the one I hadn't needed since my kids were small, roared to life. All reason flew out the window. I didn't hesitate. I charged towards them, my voice cutting through the quiet night air. What the hell is happening here? I fully expected Delilah to turn to me with relief, for this man to shrink back. I expected to be her hero, her rescuer. Instead, what happened next defied all logic. She turned, and the look on her face wasn't relief. It was sheer, unadulterated panic, but it was directed at me. If I had just stopped for a second, I would have noticed she wasn't trying to pull away from him. Her body language was comfortable with his proximity, even in their argument. She was trying to protect him from me. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Arthur, let's just go." "It's a misunderstanding," she said, her voice a strained hiss, trying to drag me away. My head was spinning, trying to reconcile the scene in front of me with 25 years of trust. Before I could form a single coherent thought, before I could even ask who this man was, he lunged. I saw a flash of movement in my peripheral vision, and then an explosion of pain on the side of my face. The world tilted violently, the ground rushing up to meet me. Then, everything went black. The next thing I was aware of was the rhythmic wail of a siren and the sterile, antiseptic smell of an ambulance. A sharp, throbbing pain radiated from my nose and jaw. I was on my way to the ER. I found out later what had transpired in the moments I was unconscious. After I hit the floor, the man had tried to come at me again, ready to continue his assault. But by some miracle, two of my closest friends had heard the commotion and come running. They tackled him, pulling him off me before he could do more damage. They didn't hold back. They called the police immediately. He was arrested and charged with unprovoked assault and trespassing on private property. I, meanwhile, spent a miserable night in the hospital. My nose was broken and needed stitches. My face was a swollen, purple mess. The doctors kept me for observation, worried I had a serious concussion. When I finally regained full consciousness, the world swimming back into blurry focus, the first person I saw was Delilah. She was sitting by my bedside, her face a carefully constructed mask of worry and concern. But as I looked at her, I felt nothing of the warmth or comfort I should have. All I felt was a cold, creeping wave of disgust. My head was pounding, but my mind was surprisingly clear. I asked her, my voice hoarse, "What happened? Who was that guy?" Her story came out smooth, a little too smooth, as if she'd been rehearsing it. "I just stepped out for some fresh air. Honey," she began, trying to take my hand. "This man, I've never seen him before. He just came out of the woods and started harassing me, asking for my number. I told him no, and he got aggressive. That's when you came out. You saved me." Even through the fog of pain and medication, I knew it was a lie. A ridiculously, insultingly bad lie. You don't stand calmly and argue with a stranger who pops out of the woods. You scream. You run. You call for help. She hadn't been resisting him. She'd been engaged with him. She was protecting him, not me. A cold clarity washed over me. I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that if I challenged her story right then, she would just double down, become more careful, and I would never uncover the real truth. I had to play the part of the trusting, heroic husband she was painting me as. So, I bit my tongue until it bled. I nodded slowly, as if accepting her fabricated tale. "Okay," I whispered. Did you at least file a harassment charge against him?" She hesitated for just a fraction of a second, but it was enough. "Oh, no, I didn't think of it. There's no real evidence, is there? And besides," she added quickly, "he's already charged with assault. The police said we're covered." That was it. The final nail in the coffin of my trust. She didn't want him to face any more trouble than necessary. The moment I was discharged, a new, grim purpose took root in my soul. The life I thought I had was a lie. Now, I needed to uncover the extent of that lie. The very first call I made was to a high-powered divorce attorney. His receptionist told me it would be a 2-week wait for a consultation. I told her it was an emergency and paid a hefty premium to get an appointment for the following week. While I waited, I became a spy in my own home. We had always known each other's phone passwords. It had been a symbol of our open and honest relationship, a fact that now seemed like a bitter joke. I never in a million years thought I'd be the kind of husband to snoop, but Delilah had left me no other choice. I watched her like a hawk, waiting for an opportunity. It came 2 days after I got home from the hospital. She went to take a long shower, leaving her phone charging on the nightstand. My heart hammered in my chest as I picked it up, my fingers feeling like clumsy sausages as I typed in her passcode. I searched her recent texts, her call log. Nothing. It was all clean. For a terrifying moment, I felt a wave of self-doubt. Was I wrong? Was I just being a paranoid, concussed fool? The thought of being wrong was almost worse than being right. Then, a flicker of an idea. I navigated to her archived chats, and there it was. My world, which had been cracked at the party, now shattered into a million irreparable pieces. He wasn't a trespasser. He was her lover. Their affair had been going on for over 6 months. My hands trembled so violently I could barely hold the phone. I sat on the edge of our bed, and scrolled through a history of deceit that made me physically ill. I forced myself to screenshot everything, every loving emoji, every sordid plan, every lie. The messages revealed the truth of that night. She had tried to break things off with him a few days before the party, not out of guilt, but for reasons that weren't clear. He hadn't taken it well. He had shown up that night to confront her, to beg, plead, and even threaten her. He told her if she left him, he would expose their affair to me. He even had the gall to demand breakup sex as a condition for letting her go. He had followed us all the way from our house, sending her a constant stream of manipulative, desperate texts, behaving like a toxic teenager. He wanted her to sneak away from her friend's 50th birthday party to have fun in his car. He was a psychopath, but the most soul-crushing part was the messages sent after he assaulted me. After he was arrested and released on bail, he texted her. One message I will never forget read. LOL knocked him down with one punch. Her reply? A single, smiling face emoji. He was insisting they meet up while I was lying in a hospital bed with a broken nose. And she wasn't shutting him down. She was pleading with him to just lay low for a few days until I recovered, promising him that the wait would be worth it. She was still planning to sleep with the man who had put me in the hospital. The betrayal was so deep, so complete, it felt like it hollowed me out. But through the searing pain, a cold, hard resolve began to form. I would not break. I would not let them see me crumble. I would gather my evidence, and I would plan my revenge. I methodically saved every screenshot, backed them up to a cloud drive, to a USB stick, and even printed out hard copies that I hid in my office. Piece by piece, I was building my case. When my appointment with the lawyer finally arrived, I didn't walk in as a heartbroken husband. I walked in as a man prepared for war, armed with a thick folder of evidence. We started preparing the divorce paperwork immediately. Delilah, meanwhile, was playing the part of the doting wife, fussing over me, asking if I needed anything, completely oblivious to the ticking time bomb under our life. She didn't know she was going to be served in a week. All I had to do was plan my exit. My lawyer made a crucial point that solidified my strategy. He said, Arthur, a man who sucker punches you at a party over a woman he's having an affair with is not stable. He has a fragile ego and serious anger issues. If you publicly humiliate him, there's no telling what he might do. You need to be smart. You need to be safe. He was right. A public confrontation wasn't the answer. I needed to disappear. I needed to become a ghost. Until the day I left, I continued my surveillance. It was a form of self-torture, but I needed to know everything. She had met her lover twice during that week. Their texts were more disgusting than I could have imagined. I learned he was in his late 30s, married, and his wife had just given birth to twins a few months ago. He would send Delilah vile messages about his wife, complaining about her post-pregnancy body, calling her disgusting and useless in bed. He was a true piece of human garbage. He painted himself as a tortured man, starved of affection, and told Delilah she was a goddess, more beautiful at 49 than his wife in her 30s. It was a pathetic, transparent line, and Delilah devoured every word of it. It became clear she wasn't serious about the breakup at all. She was a 49-year-old woman, not a scared teenager. If she wanted to end it, she could have. She could have blocked him, reported him. Instead, she was playing a twisted game, keeping him on the edge, making him chase her. Maybe it was some kind of sick kink for them both. I used this information. I dug into his life. I found his full name, his home address, his workplace, his wife's name, even the address of his parents. I was gathering ammunition. My snooping also led me to the chats between Delilah and her supposed best friend, Maria. I knew Delilah confided everything in her. There, I found the next layer of deceit. Maria was also cheating on her husband. They were each other's alibis, each other's cover. The girls' nights and weekend shopping trips were all a lie. I had known Maria for 20 years. I had liked her. Her husband, Mark, was a good man. He didn't deserve this. I meticulously printed out copies of those conversations, too. I created 2 thick envelopes, 2 little packages of life-destroying truth. One was addressed to the affair partner's wife. The other was for Mark. While my secret life as a detective unfolded at night, my days were spent methodically dismantling my life with Delilah. I changed every password to every account I owned. I called the banks and had her removed as an authorized user from my credit cards. I froze our joint accounts. I got a new phone with a new number and began updating it with my bank, my doctor, my work. Everyone except the people in our shared social circle. A good friend of mine had a rental apartment that was about to be vacant. I told him my situation, and he agreed to let me have it, no questions asked. The final pieces were falling into place. The divorce papers were drawn up and ready to be filed. All I needed was the right moment to disappear. That moment arrived when Delilah and Maria cheerfully announced they were going on a girls' weekend shopping spree to a town a few hours away. It was perfect. The stage was set. The morning after they left, the movers I'd booked arrived. As fate would have it, they were 2 hours late, which actually gave me more time for my final preparations. I had been slowly and secretly packing boxes for weeks, stashing them in the garage. I wasn't leaving behind a single thing that mattered to me. In a final, symbolic act, I went into the garage, put my gold wedding band in a vise, and cut it in half with a hacksaw. The screech of the metal was cathartic. I took the 2 broken pieces of the ring and walked back inside. I placed them on the kitchen counter, directly on top of the freshly printed divorce papers and a photocopy of every single piece of evidence I had gathered. It was a crime scene of a dead marriage, and I was leaving it for her to find. Then, I had to do the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I called my 3 children. I asked them to meet me at a coffee shop near the house, and I made them promise not to tell their mother. The sound of their worried voices on the phone almost broke me. They thought I was sick, that I was dying. My 2 oldest, my daughter Clara and my son Leo, arrived first. My youngest, Ben, FaceTimed in from his college dorm room. Seeing their faces, filled with concern for me, was a gut punch. I took a deep breath and told them that I was divorcing their mother. The whys came immediately. I tried to be gentle. Your mother isn't happy with me anymore, I started, but Clara, always so perceptive, cut me off. She looked me straight in the eye and asked the question I was dreading. Dad, did she cheat on you? I couldn't lie to them. They were adults. They deserved the truth, or at least a version of it they could handle. I told them yes. I told them I had found evidence and that I was leaving. I explained that if I didn't tell them myself, their mother would inevitably twist the story to her advantage, and I couldn't let that happen. The tears came first. Then came their anger, a fierce, protective anger on my behalf. Then came the heartbreaking questions. Are you sure? Can't you try to work on it? Dad, do you still love her? I told them that despite everything, she was their mother, and she had been a good one, and that a part of them should always try to respect her for that. Clara offered to come stay with me, but I told her no. I needed to do this alone. I wouldn't tell them my new address, not yet. I couldn't put them in the position of having to lie to their mother. This was my mess to handle, and I refused to drag them into the middle of it. We cried, we hugged, and they left, devastated but completely on my side. Their support was the one light in all the darkness. After they left, I made my final moves. I hired a professional courier service, the kind that requires a signature upon receipt. I gave them the 2 envelopes. They were instructed to deliver them directly to the recipients at their workplaces. I sat in my car in a nearby parking lot, watching the tracking on my burner email. I saw the first confirmation, package delivered and signed for by affair partner's wife. 10 minutes later, package delivered and signed for by Mark, Maria's husband. The fuses had been lit. That night, I checked into a hotel. My friend's rental needed another week for cleaning. I turned off my old phone, the one Delilah knew, and I slept for 10 straight hours, a deep, dreamless sleep of pure exhaustion. The next morning, I briefly turned the old phone on. It was a digital explosion. Dozens of missed calls. A flood of hysterical texts from Delilah. Arthur, where are you? Please call me. We need to talk. And several vile, threatening texts from her lover. swearing he would find me and finish what he started. I screenshotted his threats and sent them to my lawyer before turning the phone off again. There was also a voicemail from Mark, Maria's husband. His voice was hollow. He just asked if we could meet. We had brunch later that day. He looked like he had aged 10 years overnight. He thanked me, profusely, for telling him the truth. He said he had never suspected a thing. He was completely and utterly shattered. He asked me about my plan, and I told him I was ghosting her. He wanted to post everything on social media to expose them to the world. I strongly advised him against it, repeating my lawyer's warning that public battles get messy and often backfire. I told him to get a lawyer, first thing. I left him sitting there, disoriented and heartbroken. That's what betrayal does. It knocks the world out from under your feet. For now, the ghosting was working. The next on my to-do list was to notify HR at the affair partner's workplace. Not to get him fired, but to create a paper trail. If a man is willing to assault his lover's husband and send threats, he was a potential liability, and his employer needed to be aware of it. I knew I couldn't stay a ghost forever. Eventually, I would have to face her. My daughter Clara was engaged, and a wedding was being planned for a couple of years down the line. I wouldn't be able to escape seeing Delilah's face then. But that was a problem for future Arthur. Present Arthur was content to stay in the shadows and watch the dominoes fall. And fall they did, in spectacular fashion. The affair partner's wife, it turned out, was a woman of incredible strength. Armed with my envelope of evidence, she confronted him. He tried to lie and gaslight his way out of it, but when he realized it was hopeless, he got aggressive. He grabbed her arm, hard enough to leave deep, purple bruises. She didn't hesitate. She ran to a neighbor, who called the cops. He was arrested, again, this time for domestic violence. He spent the whole weekend in jail. His parents, who had apparently also received an anonymous copy of the chats from his wife, refused to bail him out. When he was finally released, his father-in-law was waiting for him outside the courthouse. From what I was told, he beat the man senseless right there on the street. His wife sent me a photo of his bruised, swollen face with a simple caption, "Justice." A few nights later, my doorbell camera, which I still had access to, sent me a motion alert. It was him. He showed up at my old house, his face still visibly bruised, looking for me. When Delilah answered the door, he went berserk. I watched the grainy, silent footage as he lunged, his hands wrapping around her throat. It was chaos. He stumbled out a few minutes later, got in his car, and sped away. Delilah came out after him, looking utterly shaken. I didn't feel a shred of pity. She had made her bed with a violent monster. Now she had to lie in it. Around the same time, Mark officially served Maria with divorce papers. 2 cheating wives, 2 women who thought they were clever and untouchable, were now watching their comfortable lives crumble to dust. Delilah tried to use the kids as pawns to get to me. She called them, crying, saying she was worried sick and just wanted to talk to me. But they stood their ground. Leo told her, "Mom, Dad took all the pain on himself to protect us from this. He deserves peace. Leave him alone." They completely shut her out. The divorce was surprisingly quick. With the mountain of evidence I had, she had no leverage. She tried to fight for the house, claiming the kids needed a family home to come back to. I could have fought her and won, but I let her have it. Let her have the empty rooms and the silent hallways. Let her be haunted by the memories of the family she destroyed. Alimony was completely off the table. The rest of our assets were divided 50-50ths. The real irony is that Delilah, who thrived on being the center of a bustling family, has no idea how to be alone. Her best friend, Maria, wants nothing to do with her. Her violent lover is buried under his own mountain of legal problems. She is completely, utterly isolated. That is her real punishment. I'm living in my friend's rental now. It's smaller, but it's quiet, and it's mine. My children have my new number, and we talk every day. Clara often comes over for dinner. We're healing, together. Their love, their unwavering support, is the only thing that truly matters. The man who punched me is a walking disaster. My wife, who smiled about it, is living in a mausoleum of her own making. I didn't scream, I didn't fight, I didn't cause a public scene. I just gathered the truth, stepped out of the way, and let their own toxicity do the rest. It's truly telling when the people who should be closest to you, your kids, your friends, want nothing to do with you in the end. The affair partner literally sucker punched a man at a party and then had the audacity to keep pursuing his wife. People like this never, ever think they are the problem. And Delilah had the nerve to stick by him. Two brain-dead souls who truly deserved each other. Have you ever seen two people so spectacularly toxic that you can't help but think they were a perfect match? Call them out in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining us for this wild ride today. If this story left you speechless, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time, stay safe out there.